Wanted to add up a little addendum here to my last video. It's been real hot here this summer, and we're only in the end of July. But I mean, it's just been sweltering all over the country, as everybody knows. But it's been sweltering here since I moved here. I mean, you go outside and the sweat just pours off of you. I'm living in a high humidity area, coast to the coast. It's unbelievable. It's not like anything I've ever experienced before as far as heat and humidity. It was hot where I was too in my last town that I lived in, but not as humid. In fact, it was quite dry there, and like zero humidity. And that was one of the things that I really liked about it, was that it didn't get too hot, and it was always sunny. Every day was sunny and beautiful. But we still had like grass and not as many tall trees, but some trees. There's a lot more wooded area and trees and thick, heavy grasses here, and yards everywhere, well groomed, most of them. You can't keep up with the mowing here; it's impossible. But everybody's yard is grass is too long because it just doesn't. There's so much rain, we can't get out and mow it. But anyway, one day I was walking. That day I made that video, my last video. I was walking down to my car, and I was thinking. A couple times since then, I was thinking about how I used to have to. This time of year, in my last position, she would make me run from room to room to room to do all of these updates and cleaning and all of these things, we have people who are paid to go into classrooms, wipe down desks and lecterns and monitors and clean and vacuum in there. Granted, they probably don't do it enough during the school semester, but that is their job. They're hired to do that, and it's not, it shouldn't be my job to do that as well, to worry about whether or not a lectern is wiped off with Windex, I mean, it's just, but she wanted me to do it, and we also had these labels that were like from a label maker. Do you remember those things from like when you were little that you wanted to like punch letters onto a tape, and then you would peel the back of the tape and stick it on something? And I know that they have, those things that you can get like that, at office supply stores, and that they haven't gone like completely out of style, but unless you've used one in a while, you might have forgotten that they exist. But anyway, we used to have my office phone number on every lectern and on every piece of computer equipment in case it broke, basically. So we'd have one on the lectern. We'd have the phone number on the desktop for the computers. And we'd have it like somewhere probably close to the AV racks. So because we didn't want professors to try to fix broken equipment by themselves, we always wanted them to call us. But having said that, like, they were well aware that they needed to call us and that the number would be on the desktop. And all of the professors who taught in our rooms knew me and knew how to get a hold of me by email. And many of them had my private phone number, text message. I still occasionally will be walking around. I haven't been on campus in 2 months back there, and I'll still be walking around and get a text message on my cell phone from a professor who's in a room who wants to ask me for help or ask me to do something for them. And I miss them, big time. And it was always my pleasure to help them and serve them. But anyway, and to be of help and to be able to solve problems for them was a great reward for me in what I did. Like, I've always only wanted to be of help and of service to a higher ed community. It's the one joy that I get from my work. It's certainly not about the salary. Okay, but anyway, Right about now, she'd have a long list of things, that she'd want me to do. She'd sit in our air conditioned office, right, in her desk on her enormous ass, looking at her computer monitor and ordering parts or doing something on the calendar to schedule a repair for a room or an overhaul. And that's basically like when she got there 3 years ago, 4 years ago, 3 years before me. She didn't know anything about how to do any of this, and she taught herself. And the director above her retired. It was COVID. So she lucked out. That person retired in like 8 months, and within that year, like 3 months later, they hired her. They promoted her from my position to that position. So it's only by sheer luck that she is the director of that position. Anyway, so that's the extent of the work that we did, is that we managed all of the technical aspects of these rooms, and we scheduled them for recordings, and we published the recordings, and we helped professors manage their technology when they were in the classroom, and like their laptops and things like that, and also to manage the classroom technology. And our rooms were pretty sophisticated. Like, it wasn't just a lecture and plug in your laptop and do a PowerPoint presentation. There was a lot more equipment than that in those rooms. And so there are a lot of software applications that need routine downloading updates. And there, not to mention all the Microsoft downloads that need to be done for updates and these sorts of things, like window updates, everything, right? Checking on the hardware, replacing it as needed, and putting it all on a calendar. And then we work the contracts with the vendors. And most of the money for that, I mean, it's not a big mystery. It goes into one account. Students pay for the extra fee for technology in the classrooms. We pay our salaries and we pay for the technology. Mostly, we use all of that money, and then we have like some grants. Okay, it doesn't take a genius. And when we had COVID, when there was COVID, there were huge grants. They were just giving away, like, you would just fill out a simple form, file it, and the government would give you huge grants to put your courses online, right? So when you see a job and it says, you must know how to write grants, that writing a good grant is in normal circumstances for a normal grant, not where it's like, a emergency situation and almost anybody can just fill out a simple form for the application, a government website, and get money. It's not like that. Filling out or writing for a grant is a much more intensive process than that typically, and it requires a specific type of writing. And usually most good grant writers get degrees in writing grants or looking for grants, right? And you have to know how to report on a lot of different types of information, and you have to have data, and you have to follow a format. When you write a grant, there's usually, you go to the granting institution and they'll have a sample grant, right, that you can follow, or they'll have like a format. But there's a lot to it. It's not just get the information and plug it in there. It's not like that. You have to have data from your information offices on campus, like enrollment data and student demographic data and economic data from the area that you live in. You have to be able to show that what the benefits would be. So you need potential occupational and employment outlook data for the programs that you run. If it's like a STEM, a heavy science or like a technology department that is looking for a grant, you need to have data that's specific to that field of technology or engineering, whatever it is. It's not just like we have 29 kids, we have one classroom, and we need like something to present our PowerPoints on. It's not like that. It's much more sophisticated. She wasn't writing those kinds. She never wrote a grant like that in her life. She doesn't know anything about it. She wouldn't know what was required. She would know how to fill out a government application because she's ex-military, and she's probably filled out 1 million government applications. So that's a much different procedure. But anyway, by the time I had been there almost, 2 years, I was doing 95% of the work of that office, and she was doing nothing but spending money. And I'm not saying like spending money in a bad, like that's a bad characteristic for her. That was just one aspect of the job, but it was the only one left that she hadn't, dished over to me. Like she hadn't put that over on my work plate. And believe me, if she thought I could get into those accounts and spend money on technology, she would have had me doing that too, so that she could do nothing. But that's basically what I'm implying here. Is she didn't ever have to get up from her seat and do anything unless there was like a huge catastrophic failure of technology in our classrooms, and we had like a couple of those. And in those situations, she would get her big fat ass into those rooms, and she would just she would get into the computer system, into the AV racks, and she would work like for 45 minutes plugging and unplugging things and trying this and trying that before she would declare something dead, and that she would then call the vendors and have them come in and look at it and try to work on it before she would order a replacement part, right? So because she would do that, like she considered herself the only one that was like capable of making a real repair in an AV room. I made repairs every day of my life in those rooms. And they usually didn't take me that long to make, because usually the repairs are just something like a jack is dead, a port is dead, it needs to be replaced, a piece of equipment has failed, you need to go in and reset it after an electrical storm, equipment in a closet needs to be like there's a switcher that needs to be reset in the back of the system, something like that, right? There's rarely ever a major catastrophic failure of an AV system, unless it's like 4 or 5 years old and then it's just dead. You don't need to spend 45, 50 minutes in there either figuring out that it's dead and you need to replace it, because it'll say right on the warranty how many hours you can expect that piece of equipment to perform. And like, say I had been in her position, I would have been keeping track of those hours. So like if I bought, say, a projector of some sort for the back of the room, and it said 2,000, expected life is 2,000 lumen hours, something like that, right? And I know that projector is going to run 4 or 5 hours a day. Let's just say it's 2,000. It could have been 5,000 for all I know. And I know that projector is going to run a solid 5 hours a day. I would have added up 5 days a week, however many weeks in a semester, over the course of a year, multiplied that out until I knew the lumen hours were done, and then I would have just ordered another one and had it on hand. When that one went, I would have plugged in the other one. No big deal. It's not rocket science, right? If you could balance a checkbook, you could do what she was doing. Anyway, but of course I never got any credit or recognition for that. In fact, I got marked down as underperforming in my position, and I know that I had talked about that in a prior video. But what did she? And she used the whole thing about I didn't move the lectern. Have the lectern moved out of the aisle that time. Like the vendors were supposed to take it, and their guys were supposed to take it down for surplus to pick up, and they didn't. Either that, or they were going to take it in their truck and haul it off and dispose of it somewhere, wherever they dispose of dead equipment. I don't know exactly, but I knew they were supposed to come and get it. I didn't know exactly when, and I didn't know what they were waiting for. 4 or 5 days went by. She saw the lectern, and she said it was blocking a fire escape. And what I was trying to say in that video, and the video skipped, was that was a lecture hall that held probably 100 kids. And there was like 3 or 4 sets of 25 chairs and a row between each of those sets. And those kids, they weren't in any way, shape, or form impeded, those students, from getting out of the classroom should there have been a fire in there. It was just all total fucking fabrication in her mind. And so it's like she used that as an excuse. Like, I don't know why she hated me. I don't know why She just couldn't have been happy to have somebody there who was educated. I came in every day, I was never late. I worked whenever asked. I worked some overtime. Yeah, I made some mistakes in the beginning, but after a while, like after 6 months, I didn't make those same mistakes anymore, and I improved a lot. And I'm just a normal person, like to get along with. I'm not having any angry feelings at anybody on a general day-to-day basis at my new job. I was already couldn't stand her within a week or two of working with her. I don't really think it's me. I really do think it's her, and I'm interested to see how long this new person stays with her. I think if the new person is just as dumb as she is, then she probably won't notice the kinds of things that I noticed. I mean, I'm sorry if that's like a stuck-up way of thinking or whatever, but I mean, maybe the way she is won't be apparent to this other person. Like maybe she won't notice it, and maybe she's oblivious to things like somebody chomping in her ear all day long and standing behind her and micromanaging her and talking over her on the phone and not giving her 5 minutes of peace or rest while she's sitting at her desk and these types of things. Like maybe she won't notice it. Maybe she'll go in there at the new employee or whatever and be able to fill this marketing role the way that she thinks. I mean, that woman is not going to know how to do layout for anything. She's not going to be able to lay out a newsletter. Even if she could use Canva, she won't know graphic design, so she won't know how to make it look good. She's not going to know how to do the website like I did, updates on the website. There's no way. I mean, even no matter how easy they try to make these things, like a WYSIWYG, what you see is what you get. It's basically like writing into a document. There's more to adding content onto a website, even if you only use it at that level. I use content management system on a much more, deeper level. Like I write JavaScripts and put them in there, and I can do like sorting filters and things like this. And I can also, manage CSS. I can work with CSS. I can work with HTML, and I'm learning JavaScript in this job. And I've already learned a lot of JavaScript. I've learned it from another girl that works there. But listen, you can't just sit down and do website stuff without knowing some basic HTML. This woman bakes cakes. She doesn't know anything about HTML, so she's not going to be able to do any kind of, advertising design or graphics on the website. She's not going to be able to do any layout for like brochures, newsletters, handouts, nothing. If she could make up a chart for people to sign their email on, she'd be lucky. So I don't know what she's expecting this person is going to be able to do for her. And frankly, she's probably married, and if that's the case, I mean, she's middle-aged. She's not going to want to drive all over the country, attending these conferences, sitting at a table, handing out brochures. The thing about that is that it's just so stupid for her to spend her energy doing that and making this other woman do it, because we have entire departments on the university campus to where people are employed to do that kind of thing, marketing and communications. They have people with advanced degrees in marketing and communications hired in those departments who are supposed to be doing those kinds of things. All she needs to do is call that office and say, there's a major conference for educators, STEM educators in colleges in Waco or wherever it is, Utah, San Francisco. I want you to send somebody there and to push our department. That's all she needs to do. And they will look into that conference and they'll decide, yes, it's worth it for us to send somebody. No, it's not worth it. It's not big enough, whatever. It's too expensive. They will make those decisions, and they will design the marketing materials and figure out, how to work at one of those conferences. She doesn't have any idea. I don't know why she concerns herself with it. She knows nothing about marketing, graphics, or anything. A couple of times, like, she did some little graphic design, like print things, and I went over and looked at them. She asked me to because she knew I had a long background in it, and so I went over and looked at it, and I said, well, if you really want my feedback, I'll give you some feedback. But she would do things like in a very small, tight design, she would have like two different kinds of fonts, and she couldn't see that font families. She couldn't see that they were two different like typefaces. Like it was a mistake that she had done, you know. She would use 3 or 4 different weights of font in that small space, you know. Simple things like this. She would use a center a line, and then right underneath it use left align. Like you don't, in graphic arts, you don't do stuff like that. It's a dead giveaway that you're an amateur, right? So if you look at stuff on TV, like a little sign or a logo or something like that, like I'm looking at something on YouTube right now, and it's all centered aligned. It's not like some of it is center aligned and some is left aligned, some of it is center aligned. It's not. It's all center aligned. Anyway, the point of this that I wanted to talk about is just that, you know, she didn't think that I could do anything. She thought she was the only one that could run that show, and that she, you know, was somehow more valuable than me, and that I should just put up with the crap that she was dishing out. And you know, it was really hard for me to do that, like especially since I could see that she was just handing off all of the work of that department to me, and I wouldn't care. I would gladly do it if she would acknowledge that I was doing it, or that she would thank me, but she never did. All she did was find fault, you know. Okay, so here's an example. Like when it's 90, it's 95 here, it feels like 110, and it's pouring wet out, like the sweat off your body. It's not that hot there, but say it would be like 95 degrees and sunny, right? That was going to be the entire week coming up. Like she wanted me to suffer. She'd come in and she'd say, okay, I want you to do this would be over the summer. Students mostly, for the most part, would be gone. Okay, I want you to do those updates in the rooms this week. Get it done by Wednesday. Now, I'd look at the calendar, and this would be ordinarily something that we didn't take on until like 5 weeks from that week, right? 5 weeks out. Because that would be like a time when the semester would end and there would be nobody in those rooms, right? But I'm like, she'd bring it up to that week because she knew it was going to be hot outside, and she wanted to make me out all day running in it and working in it and climbing stairs in it and going from one room to the next. And during the summertime like that, they don't keep the rooms air conditioned to the same extent. Like the minimal temperature will be like 70, right? Or it'll be set down to 74. Okay, so with the combined heat outside, the rooms on average are about 80. And they don't have that many classes on campus. Like most of the classes during the summertime will be offered online. And they're trying to do like an energy thing. So there's really no reason to cool those rooms down to like 65. So when I say I'm running all over campus and I'm going into 80-degree rooms, it would be like all day long. And it was purposeful. She purposely kept her eye on the weather all the time to see what was going to happen. And if it was going to be an extremely hot week, that would be the week that she would schedule something like that for me. And I was just like, why do we have to do it now? Like, we don't need that for 5 weeks from now. And that's when we usually do it. And she'd say, because I want it done this week, because they're going to be doing next week. They're going to be doing some kind of carpeting or something out in the hallway, and I wanted to have this done first. You know, something like that. She would have some kind of excuse, and it was so totally see-through. It was just that she wanted me to have to go out and run around in the heat. And I know that this is true. Like, she keep her eye on the weather all the time. Like, I never looked at the weather because I just expected every day would be the same. And if in the winter time, it wouldn't get that cold, and we didn't often have storms. But 1 or 2 weeks out of the winter every year would be absolutely freezing, right? And we didn't have good heating systems in these old buildings, and so our office would freeze. And inevitably, she would be like, okay, at the end of the next week, I'm taking a week off because her husband is going out of town, and I need to be home with the kids. It's just total fucking lie. Big lie, right? And I'd be like, well, that's strange. Like, why didn't she tell me this, a month ago? I mean, I don't care when she would go. I'd be like, well, why all of a sudden is she telling me about this? Like, she must have known about this for months, And I couldn't figure it out. And then sure enough, that week would start. That Monday I'd come in, It would be like 20, 30 degrees outside. And our office, like the thermostats were broken, the heaters didn't work, and our office would be like, would not get up above 50 all day. I would sit there in a winter coat with a scarf around my neck and like mittens on that expose your fingers typing and trying to get like the maintenance men over to look at the heaters. And the heaters were old and we needed an entirely new system and they weren't going to buy one. And so they would come over and bang on the pipes and the heat would turn on for like 10 minutes and then they would leave and then it would shut right off again. And would just do this for an entire week. And through the rest of the year, you don't really notice it because the temperature is usually pretty warm. You don't really need the heat. But the 1 week that we do need the heat, she's gone, right? What a coincidence. And she would do the same kind of thing in the summertime. So she knew it was going to be cold and unbearable. She'd been there 3 years. So she'd keep her eye on the weather, and she saw we were having a cold snap. That was the week she needed to work at home. And that's what she'd do, too, so she wouldn't have to use up her vacation time. And she'd say, I'm working from home. And she would do something like text me once that day, and that was her idea of proving to me that she was working at home. It's just not. Like, I don't work at home. I think this business of working at home is, I don't really agree with it, whatever. I don't think these people are really working, but you know, whatever. But anyway, oh yeah, I'm working at home this week. Yeah, I'd go into the office, it'd be 50 in there. So anyway, this time of year, she would have me out running around doing these updates, and I'd be dying of sweat, you know, and so hot, out in the bright, bright sun, walking across the quad from one building to the next. Well, I started getting smart about that because when she started doing that again, I would just put the student employees on and student assistants on it. There was one of them we got for a couple of years there. We didn't have student assistants who could handle doing these updates. Like they just didn't know how, and I couldn't really train them in it. And then I finally hired one guy who was really, you know, quite smart and technical, had the technical know-how, and he was going to stick around for the summer. That's the other thing too. I don't want to put down our student assistants because they were good kids, but a lot of times they would go away for the summer. This kid was going to be around all summer, and I could employ him. So when she told me, oh, next week I want you to do these updates, I just called the students. And she'd be like, oh, you're going to take them around? I said, no, I'm not taking them around. I'll train this one kid how to do it, and he and the other kid can go around by themselves and do it, and then check in with me when they're done. I could tell she didn't like that idea. Well, you'll need to supervise them. I'm like, I will supervise them right here from my desk. They can go out and run around. I'm like, keep in mind too, like, even though I look younger than her, and I'm built younger than her, and I'm athletic and everything else, I'm really like 4 or 5 years older than her, you know, and she's too lazy to go out and go across the quad and do these kinds of updates or have even go into a room for anything unless it's a dire emergency. But she's sending somebody who's 5 or 6 years older than her out to do it in the middle of the heat, you know, 3, 5, I don't know how many, like 3 to 5 years older than her, out in the middle of the heat in the height of the sun to do it, right? Because she doesn't want to do it, right? So that's how she was. And like I said, I really wouldn't have cared, but you know, I never got any credit for it or any kind of thank you or an acknowledgement for successfully doing all of those things and managing those things, you know. And thank God I didn't need to rely on her for a recommendation, because I don't think she would have given me one, or given me one where she really acknowledged what I did in that position to any degree, where it would have been helpful to me, right, to get a new position. She would have downplayed, in other words, everything that I did there or contributed, and she wouldn't have like agreed that I did anything that was technical or that I had an ability to do anything technical, right? The other thing about it is I would just get done with one thing like that, and then she would say the next thing, okay, every room, the Intuos and the Intuos tablets need an update, and you need to change out the pens. And I would be like, I just was in every single room last week doing the Windows update. Like, well, I could have done the Intuos pens then, you know, the tablets and the pens then. Like, why didn't she tell me? No, see, she wouldn't tell you like that because she'd rather have me taking 2 trips, you know, and she just left to make me suffer. I swear to God, you know, What she didn't understand is she wasn't making me suffer, because I can go out and run 10 miles in 100-degree heat. And I've been doing it for my whole life, my whole adult life, since I was 15 or 16. So the fact that I have to walk across the green and go into a room that's 80 degrees and take a Windex bottle and wipe down this and that and install an update and then, straighten out the chairs and leave and go to the next room and do it, it's really nothing. Yeah, it's not fun. I don't want to do it, but like I'd rather be sleeping or rather be sitting at my desk, but it's not like it's nothing to me, and I know like she wanted it to be a punishment on my body. But you can't punish me in that kind of way. I can do any kind of shit, physical shit. I mow the lawn in the rain, I don't care. I'll go outside in 105-degree heat here and mow the lawn. It's almost an acre. The sweat will just pour right off of me. I'll stop once for a glass of water. You can't beat me here. You can't. You can't beat me down. I've been doing this stuff my whole life. It doesn't bother me. So she thinks that she is causing me to suffer. She's not. I suffer more in the cold, I do have to say, because I don't have the body fat. And she'd like me to run around like that in the same way over winter break. But what she didn't understand about that was that I kind of liked going around at the winter time in the snow, because I would see, like, the campus was decorated with Christmas lights, and kids were out playing snowball fights and making snowmen, and college kids, they were getting ready to go home, and everybody was cheerful, and people were wishing me Merry Christmas, and I'd see my friends, doing it. She wanted everything for me to be like suffering and no fun and not enjoyable at all, but not like that, but it's just the point that I could see that was her intention. All right, now all I do in this job is it's a desk job. I just kind of sit there. I can get up whenever I want and take a walk, but it's not the physical. Like that job was, I do have to say, like I had to get down a lot and bend down. My knees are getting kind of arthritic. Bend down and fix equipment up and down like that, carry things around from room to room and do stuff like that. And that was kind of tiring, but I don't have to do any of that in this job, and I work in perfectly air-conditioned rooms. My office is perfectly climate controlled. So I just, like, when I walk outside now in the heat, I think about what I'd be doing there right now if I was still under her, and I'm thankful to God I got out from under that bitch. Truth bomb. Bye.